Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Top 5 teams who have improved in the portal college basketball. Again, this is going to be an ever-growing ranking because the portal is still going on. It's closed, but a lot of commitments yet to be made and some really good players still available. But so far, let's dive in. Number 5, Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats. You see him there saying, "You're a cat." Meow, meow. Kentucky has had to rebuild the roster completely and fill it up with veterans. With Kerr Krissa alone, they've got a name flash, but the biggest one that they picked up so far is Kobe Brea, who comes in from the MAC, one of the best pure shooters in the country. He is going to be a Kentucky Wildcat. Andrew Carr's in there, Lamont Butler Jr. They've got a lot of players who are going to play a lot of minutes for them, and they're going to be a veteran team for the first time in a very long time. Plus, I'm sure he'll balance that out with some pretty interesting high school recruits as well. Number 4, Darren DeVries and the West Virginia Mountaineers. He starts out just by bringing in his son, Tucker DeVries, one of the best point guards in the country, reshapes that roster completely from the top down. Also adding guard Javon Small just yesterday from Oklahoma State makes that a duo in the backcourt that is going to be reckoned with. And Darren DeVries already hitting the ground running in Morgantown. Expect the West Virginia Mountaineers to make a sizable jump in the Big 12 in year 1 under Darren DeVries. The only problem with that is that it's the Big 12. And there are 2 other teams on this list who are in the Big 12. It is going to be an absolute fight every single night through 16 teams in this league. Maybe there'll be one that'll be bad. Maybe. Maybe some of the newer teams aren't ready to go just yet, but one of the teams that's coming in is Arizona, and the other one that's coming in is Colorado. And both those teams are NCAA tournament teams, and Arizona is one of the elite programs in the entire country, as you know. But expect a lot from West Virginia in year 1 under Darren DeVries. They just needed some stability after the Bob Huggins situation, and now that he's brought in his son, Javon Small, and some others, that's going to be a program to watch in 2024. Number 3. Scott Drew and the Baylor Bears. Only 2 transfers in right now, but this is not about quantity so much as it about quality. First off, Jeremy Roach comes in to run the point for the Bears. I don't know if there's a coach in the country who's been better at getting point guards out of the portal than Scott Drew. I don't know, Manu LeCompte. Let's see, give me another one. Davion Mitchell. Give me another one. Oh, I don't know. How about Pierre Jackson? All these guys, excellent point guards out of the portal. And I have Ray J. Dennis just a year ago was one of their better players, and they probably aren't as good as they were without Ray J. Dennis, although his style didn't completely match the rest of the team. He was an engine that made them go. Jeremy Roach is a player who's been in a Final Four. He's been at Duke. He's been in big games his whole career. Now steps into the Big 12 with a chance to improve his stock for the NBA draft in 2025, something that Scott Drew's been really good at, and steps in with some guards already accomplished like Langston Love and Jaden Nunn, not to mention VJ Edgecombe, the super freshman coming in, and able to facilitate and score will be great. And they also added just yesterday Norshad Omier from Miami, 17 and 10 every night, a good passer, a good blocker, and surprisingly adept at steals and three-pointers for a guy that's his size. He is the dude they've been missing. Kevin Flaherty described him to David Smoak as, imagine Mark Vidal with a rocket up him. That's Norshad Omier, and Baylor's got him and hitting the ground running. A great offseason for Scott Drew, able to tell Louisville and Kentucky no and bring in those kind of players. Number 2, Alabama. I could stop at Clifford Omiuri and be done with this list. That's a big man who's going to really flourish in Nadeau's system. You remember how good Brandon Miller was a couple years ago. Omiuri comes in with some other players right now. Alabama's not done. They did take a hit in Rylan Griffin, and we're going to talk about him in just a second. But Rylan Griffin's gone. He's off to Kansas. But this is a team in Nadeau's that continues to rebuild, even taking a player away from rival Auburn, something that I know that me and Garrett and like people from our generation don't understand going to the rival, but It happens now in the transfer portal. Nate Oates and Alabama should keep rolling along in 2024. And number one, the Kansas Jayhawks and Bill Self, my wife's actual first choice for a husband. And I'm not just saying this to score points with my wife. That would be fleeting, and she knows that. She's way smarter. But so far, the team that had the furthest to go of the elite teams to get back to who they were from last year, even though last year for most teams wouldn't have been that bad. A second-round postseason exit for most teams is like, okay, well, that was a fun year. For Kansas, it was an absolute disaster, especially 2 years removed from an NCAA championship. This is a team that feels like with veterans like KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, and DeJuan Harris can win. Now, look, Johnny Furphy, according to Bill Self, probably staying in the NBA draft. But that did not slow them down. They added guard A.J. Storr from Wisconsin, who, when he entered the portal, was the most sought-after player in the portal. They added Rylan Griffin from Alabama, one of the most sought-after players in the portal. Riley Kugel, another player they added out of Florida, may or may not get in, but they are still adding talent. And they brought back homegrown talent Zeke Mayo, who is at South Dakota State, a guy who is a scorer off the bench, something they did not have last year. That was supposed to be the Nick Timberlake role. Just didn't really work out for the Jayhawks and Timberlake, but Zeke Mayo comes off the bench, a 3-and-D player like they needed. And Kansas, whose problem wasn't the starting lineup last year, the starting lineup was as good as any starting lineup in the country. It was depth. They did not have any depth. They kind of ran about 5 deep. Now they'll run about 6, 7, 8, well, more than 6. They'll run about 7, 8, maybe even 9 deep when this is all said and done. Again, we don't know about Riley Kugel transferring in from Florida. That might get caught up in the eligibility works, but we'll see. And if he does get in, he's a three-point assassin himself. Bill Self in Kansas, you got him while he was down and recuperating from a heart attack last year. Well, guess what? That ticker's pumping, and Bill Self is here to stay. And make sure you know that, hey, down for a year, but pay heed to all who enter the fog. Reigns even truer than it did before. Kansas should be rolling as 2024 starts. That's the top 5. Let's wrap up the show.
Are you